So, our goal today is to think about all of the elements of a story and a myth and decide how you are going to adapt your myth. Remember, we want to create this good balance of what elements you're going to change and what elements you're going to keep the same. An adaptation has to have a balance of the original and the new elements. So you can't go all the way to one side and have nobody know what myth you're even talking about, but you can't just copy down a myth that we already read. So you have to find that balance of where we're going to change things and we're going to keep things the same. So here is just a snippet of what your planning page is going to look like. And we're going to talk about some examples and some non-examples of how we're going to plan our myths. So on one side, you'll see that it has the original myth. So this is the one that we read in class. So what is the exact setting that we read in class? And then you need to decide where is this happening today? What modern adaptations can you make? What small tweaks can you change to still keep the integrity of the story? Or maybe they're bigger tweaks and it depends on what's happening. So for our example today, I'm going to do the myth Hercules. So in the original myth of Hercules, that it is set in different dangerous locations in ancient Greece. Hercules has to go through a bunch of different obstacles and things. So all of these dangerous locations are in ancient Greece and having to do with those obstacles. I want to upgrade that setting. I can think about all these different settings I could have. It could be in space. It could be in a fire station. I'm just kind of brainstorming what are all these different settings and what could keep the integrity of this story and that balance. But then I can also maybe do a high school. That kind of feels like an easier setting for me to do, like a modern day high school. So present day high school, they have social media, they have phones, they have all the things that we have in today's day and age. So I think that that's a good balance between these, dangerous places in ancient Greece versus like a present day high school. Makes more sense to me than like outer space or something random like that. Next, I'm going to think about the characters. So in the original myth of Hercules, we have the main character Hercules, we have King, I'm not going to pronounce this right, Eurydice, and then various mythical creatures. Now, I don't want to completely change these characters, but I want to upgrade them. I want to make them kind of interesting and exciting. So here's how I'm going to make them kind of interesting and exciting. Instead of Hercules, I'm going to call him Herc. That's kind of a more modern name. And he's a high school athlete. So I'm telling you like the change in personality too. Instead of a king, I'm actually going to change him to the principal. So he's the principal. Just like a king would rule over in ancient Greece, a principal kind of rules over your modern day school. So kind of upgrading it, but keeping that integrity. And then instead of having these various mystical creatures, I'm going to have some of his friends. So he has Zoe, Herc's best friend, Dylan, a classmate who actually doubts Herc, so maybe kind of that villain. And then like in these adaptations that we have choruses, narrators. So I'm going to have like a social media announcer, be the narrator. It represents the internet's reaction to Herc's challenges. And another form of a narrator might be like the challenge hosts. So there might be students that run these virtual challenges. So instead of Hercules having to do 12 of these intense strength challenges in my modern day myth, I brainstormed that he would maybe do these like virtual challenges. So I added just a little bit of information. I've kind of planned my story out a little bit more than this shows. So I added this back in. If you just have the names of the characters listed here, that's totally fine. And then you can kind of add in their personalities as you get the flow of your story. So with both of these changes, I first needed to think about what my original myth had. And then I needed to think, how can I add that twist, but keep that balance? So high school makes sense for a location. And then I just kind of upgraded and modernized these characters. So that's what we're looking for you to do today. This is the rest of your planner. So you're going to have like what happens at the beginning of the story. Remember, this section is the actual myth that you read. And then this is kind of like your upgrading section in your modern twist section. This is the problem. And you might not want to change the problem. You might want to keep it the exact same. That is totally fine. Some of these things can be like copies, and some of them can be different. And you want to, I'm going to say this all the time, you want to strike that balance. And then finally, on your last page, you're going to have what happens in the middle of your myth and what happens at the end of both the original and your adaptation. You'll notice here there's an X for the modern adaptation idea for theme. One thing that we want to make sure that you're keeping, no matter how you're doing it, is the exact theme that you identified when you were reading this. We don't want that to change. That really, really changes the integrity of the story. That really changes what this story is about. And that's not the goal of this adaptation and this project. So we're just looking for the original theme for this myth. So what we don't want to have happen is that you just like go start your planning page. You need to have yourself organized. You need to have looking at this is what your desk should look like. These are the materials you should have out on your desk. You should have the original myth. You might need to reread it. That's okay. You might want to take out your reflection or your box it up or any notes that you have to help you remember exactly what this original myth was about. And then, of course, you want your milestone 3 packet with your planning page. So if you don't have at least these 2 things out while you're planning, you're not going to be able to do this 100% and give 100% effort. So please make sure that your desk matches this when you go to work. That was the next step. We won't get there today, but this is what we are working on now. So making sure that we are planning with a balance of keeping the integrity of the story and adding that modern twist. You got this.